Hi, everybody. This is the first episode of the Homegrown LiBEERtarians. This is your host, Chris Bennett. Hey, we got an exciting cast here tonight. We're going to have a revolving door here, so you'll be able to see various people come and go or whatever. But the topic tonight is how you became a libertarian or how you discovered libertarianism. All right. So as the host, I'll go first. And when you do your story, announce who you are, where you're from. My name's Chris Bennett. I'm from Illinois. I was raised actually in Denver, Colorado. So how I discovered libertarianism, okay, was I had just finished back from boot camp, and I didn't want to be in the service for some external reasons. So they cut me out of my contract, and I got home, and I was going to be politically involved. Well, I had discovered back in earlier in '90 that I was kind of sick of the Democrats, even though I was only like 18 at the time. I learned early, and the Republicans weren't too great of an option themselves. So what I did was I was researching, and the times when you had to go to the library and research, because there was no widespread internet. The internet was around, but not in, less than maybe 1% of the population knew about the internet. And I was searching through the channels, and I had come across a news channel called Interesting. So, and at the time, this was when the Libertarian Party put conventions a year before the election for president. So I'm sitting there watching, this convention, okay, and a black gentleman who was running for president, Dick Body, happened to be sitting there, and he's talking about all this stuff, low taxes, ending the war on drugs, and protecting your Second Amendment rights. And I'm sitting there going, who are these people? Sounds like my kind of party. I went through the phone book and contacted the local, Colorado Libertarians. And at that time, you had to, if no one was in the office, you had a voice, left a message on the voice answering machine. So, and someone that next day contacted me, and, hey, we're getting signature, at so we can meet you. So I went down. I'm a couple of guys, and that's how I started with the Libertarian Party. And then they had all these books, okay, on libertarianism. So and I just started grabbing all these books, just soaking my mind and about it, and just got to be more versed in libertarianism. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Who wants to be next?
I mean, I would happily talk first if that's all right. This is Chase Oliver from Georgia.
That's okay. That's good. Go right ahead.
So it's great that you mentioned that you did time in the service. It's kind of a coincidence there because my journey to liberty started with me being anti-war. I was an anti-war Democrat ever since the War on Terror began, really shortly after the Afghanistan war got started, before Iraq. I was against the Iraq war, and I've continued to be against foreign intervention. And so I voted for Barack Obama in 2008. I thought, here comes the hope and the change that we all need. You know, I was a young, idealistic voter in 2008, and I cast that vote for Barack Obama. And I quickly realized that the wars were not ending. The drones were still dropping bombs. Guantanamo Bay was not getting closed. That got put on the back burner. And so I became very disillusioned politically for a little while. And I am LGBT. And so I happened to be at Atlanta Pride in 2010, the year we were having a gubernatorial election here in Georgia. And lo and behold, the political party that was there representing was the Libertarian Party of Georgia, led by John Mons, who was their candidate for governor in 2010. And I got to speak with John Mons, and I got to hear from his common sense approach to libertarianism and to liberty and to government. And that was my first libertarian vote. I would still say I was kind of a Democratish at the time. But in 2012, I really solidified my choice to become a libertarian with my vote for Gary Johnson and my support for libertarian candidates from then on out. And now, not only am I a libertarian voter, I am a former candidate. I ran for Congress up until September the 29th. I'm only the second libertarian to ever run for the House of Representatives in my state. I was honored to do that. I got to speak a lot about the issues that are very important, like criminal justice reform and the need to have more choices in our political discourse, more voices, more choices on the ballot. And I'm also, if you see this pin right here, I am a lifetime member of the Libertarian National Party. It is something that if you are able to do, I recommend anybody does it. Not only support the National Party, but also support your state and your local party. I'm an affiliate chair of the Libertarian Party of Atlanta. We're going to be working hard to pass criminal justice reforms in the city of Atlanta. And I recommend anybody reach out to your state or your local affiliate to get involved locally right there on the ground. Be that boots on the ground. Be that person who's going out there and getting the signatures and knocking on the doors. That is what we really need. We have a lot of people who I would say are keyboard warriors here in the Liberty movement. I recommend they go out and they get involved. And then as an LGBT person, to go full circle, my first introduction to libertarianism was at Gay Pride, and I am the fundraising director for Outright Libertarians. They are an organization, it's a charity organization that's dedicated to building the bridges between the gender and sexual minority communities and the Libertarian Party. And right now we're doing a drag calendar contest. So if you want to, I believe David's also one of the people who's involved. We have libertarians from across the country competing in a vote for your dollars vote to be our 12 drag queen models or drag king models for our upcoming calendar. So check out outrightusa.org. Check out the list. We got a lot of people. Me, David, Vermin Supreme is one of the choices. There's lots of great libertarians, and you can support them, and it will raise money not only for Outright, but also for libertarian affiliates across the country, speaking of getting back down to the grassroots. So my journey to liberty started at Gay Pride, and now is here me willing to wear a dress to raise money for libertarians across the country. So it's been a fun journey, and definitely gone full circle.
In November, I'm going to be doing a podcast for our gay LGBTQ community, and I would like to have you back on them as well, Chase.
I'd love to come back on and talk to you more about it.
Okay, I think that is just something that needs to be, talked about, and I have love for anybody who got love for me, so I don't care.
Yeah, we're all about outreach, so I'd love to come on and speak to you more about the history of LGBT libertarianism. Kind of from the very start, from Stonewall. Stonewall was a riotous action against government abuse. So I love to talk about the history of liberty and LGBT issues with you in the future. But I just appreciate you letting me come on and share my story about my journey to liberty. And I look forward to letting others have the floor and hearing other people's journey to liberty. So just want to say thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chase. I appreciate you.
You have a great evening, you guys. God bless you.
I guess I can go next if you want.
Go ahead, whoever.
Yeah. My name is David Valente. I'm the chairman of the Libertarian Party of West Virginia, Region 5 alternate on the Libertarian National Committee. I have been a Libertarian officially since August 31st of 2012. My journey to liberty started. I was very politically active as a young person. When I was 16, I was involved in my first political campaign. I was kind of herded towards the Democratic Party when I was a young teenager and first registering to vote. But I really quickly became disillusioned. I've always been somebody who has supported, greater civil rights for people, but I've also been somebody who wants limited government, reduced government, getting government out of people's lives. And I think that those two things naturally fit together. Although I didn't really have any good fit in the Democratic Party, and there wasn't a really good fit in the Republican Party. But 1994, I really fell out of favor with the Democratic Party because they really got draconian, and we're seeing the fruits of it now with the 1994 crime bill. That they really went overboard as a reaction to try and stem the tide that year where the Republicans took over. They tried to be more Republican than the Republicans on law and order issues. So I left the Democratic Party. Still being politically active, I got involved in the Republican Party and was okay with their stance because they were really pushing the idea of limited government, small government. And I worked with them until the early 2000s. But that promise of small government never came. It was always, in a couple of years we'll get that. Let's fight on abortion, we got wars to fight. We can't be a small government. We just got attacked. We're going to be a big government now. And I finally left the GOP a little bit after the Iraq War started, and then I call those years my political free agent years. I actually offered the parties that for $1 million, I'll get the party logo tattooed on me somewhere, and I'll be there. As long as they're spending money, at least I want to get some of that money. But like Chase, I was so fed up with the wars. I voted for Barack Obama. That was my last major party ticket that I voted for. And in 2012, my former governor, because at that point, before that, I'd lived in New Mexico. My former governor had switched from the Republican Party to the Libertarian Party, and I really liked Gary Johnson. He was a good governor when I was in New Mexico, and so I checked out the Libertarian Party and discovered, well, hey, there's been this party here all along. Nobody's ever really told me about it, and really got into the LP, and from there, it was just as I always say, you go to attend libertarian events, win libertarian prizes, and those prizes usually involve offices and responsibility. So, I became a vice chair of a local affiliate in Georgia, and then I moved to Virginia, and I became the vice chair and eventually the chair of the Libertarian Party of Northern Virginia, an 8th District chair and a member of the State Central Committee in Virginia for a few years. Then I moved to West Virginia, and in 2019, I was elected LPWV chair, and working on growing the party here, and was just elected to the LNC as an alternate for Region 5, which is the Mid-Atlantic states from Pennsylvania down to South Carolina. So that's my story, and that's how I got here.
Okay,
Oh wow!
well, thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Nice.
And
thank you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you. I want to have you on future
Sure.
podcasts as well. So keep your ears open, and
Sure.
well, maybe we could collaborate something in the future. Okay.
Yeah, when I start my podcast, I want you to come on that too. So we'll do a happy hour podcast.
Okay.
All right.
Sure. All right.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I'll be sticking around watching everybody else.
All right.
Hey, So I'm from New York. I'm 23. No, I'm 24 now. It's hard to keep up with that. So my ride into libertarianism, my first election was Gary Johnson. I went to college at Russell Sage in Troy, New York, where they're like super feminist and they really just shove a lot of like left-wing stuff down your throat. And I was not having it. I ended up leaving after 3 years. And we got someone else to join us here. He just woke up. So I was just not having it. I was kind of like sick of it. And so for the election, I ended up voting Gary Johnson because he seemed like, something different than everybody else, even though, a lot of people have issues with him. I've always been about like anti-war, personal responsibility and stuff like that. But I guess what really led me into like the deeper part of libertarianism was my boyfriend that I've been with for a little while now. I met shortly after the election, and I like really had no idea that the Libertarian Party was like a huge thing, even with Gary Johnson, because he didn't really like represent it as well as some other people have. And he led me into like Jason Stapleton and Dave Smith, and I started listening to podcasts that I'd never listened to before. And I really just got into like Murray Rothbard and started reading a bunch of things. And, it makes a lot of sense, honestly. And I like didn't realize that I couldn't see it for a long time because I grew up with half of my family being like super right-wing conservative and then the other half being like super socialist and just kind of got like the worst of each part of it. And, I just was really more about working hard for yourself and not trying to like take from other people, but at the same time trying to be there for others, which where like the charity part of libertarianism comes in. And I'm only maybe about like 3 years into it, but I'm gonna mute myself quick because he's getting a little cranky. So if anyone else wants to jump in.
I'll go if
All
that's
right.
okay.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. And whoever's next wants to jump in, they can jump in.
I'll go. My name's Jason Decker. I'm from Illinois, Cook County, south suburbs of Chicago. I am a recovering Democrat. And, I was always raised and taught and learned that, Democrats were for the people and, Republicans were for the rich, and big wigs and the Democrats were the small guys. And that's how I was raised. And that's what my family was. And, I slowly started to see the pattern of specifically in Cook County and Chicago, local Democrats and state Democrats, same story, different day. Taxes go up, crime goes up, poverty goes up, and then we have people preach of change and we're going to help you and we're going to do this. And I just see the same thing that I saw when I was a kid. You got neighborhoods dilapidated and just out of control, corruption and lack of oversight on spending. And about 10 or maybe 12 years ago, taking some of those political spectrum tests, everything was, every test guided me right to libertarianism. And I thought it was just I didn't do my research. I didn't really understand it. I just thought it was, there was Republican, Democrat, Independent, but, there was no, I didn't understand the Libertarian Party at the time because it was, not as prevalent or popular. So a couple friends of mine on social media basically introduced me to people and policies and ideas and things that were, in my opinion, just enlightening because it's like, oh yeah, duh, like leave me alone and stop stealing my money and let us be. We can govern ourselves. We can protect ourselves. We can take care of ourselves. And, that just kind of led me to having a label. I even, as much as I always voted Democrat, I never called myself a Democrat because there were things I criticized Democrats for. There were things I praised Republicans for, but I always just voted Democrat. So, I see the good in the good and the bad in the bad. And basically, in my opinion, libertarianism is the best of both worlds. I'm pro-gun. I'm not the anarchist, that says you should be able to walk down the street with a minigun, smoking a crack pipe. But at the same time, I'm also, I don't believe in conversion therapy and that being gay is a choice, which most Republicans do, or at least that's the ones I know. So I could be both, pro, leave me alone, let me live my life, and tax me this much for our minimal government that we do need, to protect our rights and to protect our Constitution. But, it was like that 10 or 12 year ago period was like the big light bulb went off. Like, whoa, I can actually label myself and call myself something. And up until this year, I never even registered or became like a card carrying libertarian. But for the last 10 to 12 years, I've definitely been, libertarian, and I definitely bleed gold. I tried to keep that simple. I know I kind of ran on there for a little bit.
It's okay. We don't have anybody else in queue, so you can stay. But tell you have an interesting story, Jason. Okay, tell the people of your organization and what you are doing, because Jason has a very interesting story, and I'm glad he volunteered to come on the podcast.
Recently, I decided I was going to try to run for some sort of office, and being a felon for cannabis, I cannot run for local office. And a very good friend of mine who has worked in the White House, he's worked on many campaigns. He's an independent consultant / advisor, I guess you'd call him. He's very well connected. He kind of lifted my spirits, and he said, "Jason, you weren't meant to decide where stop signs go. You're not meant to be a mayor. You're not meant to be a trustee or on a county board. You're meant for bigger things." And I said, my lack of experience, what are you talking about? And he says, well, take a look at your district. Take a look at your state rep. Why don't you do some research on him and tell me what you think? So about 48 hours later, I called him back and I said, wow, it's Rep. Will Davis, 30th District. He's been in there 18 years. Once again, he's running unopposed because I didn't get in time to properly get on the ballot, and I didn't even make it in time to be a write-in. Which I've had a friend of mine tell me, well, you can still file as a write-in even though it's less than 61 days, and unless somebody contests it, then they'll leave a line. But with the mail-in ballots, they're already out. There's no line there. It just, I'll wait. 2022 is going to be my year. So what I did was I started doing service. About 9 weeks ago, I started doing service in my district, the 30th District here in Illinois for state rep. We have 3 of the 5 statistically worst municipalities to live in, and those are Robbins, Riverdale, and Harvey. So what I did was I started reaching out to these people, started with the local governments, which of course I got nothing back. I basically said, I have 2 hands, I have 2 feet, I have a truck, I'm a contractor, I'm willing to give some of my time and my services. What can I do to help? Because you guys are definitely in need of some help. Your houses are vacant, your roofs are caving in, your streets are filled with potholes. What can I do? And none of them reached back to me. So then I started reaching out on social media in these neighborhood groups and local Facebook groups in these municipalities. And again, there was pretty much crickets until I found some people in Harvey. And Harvey has a very long history of corruption, of just very, very bad stories of Harvey. If you do some research on it, it's you drive through some of the neighborhoods, it's like a third world country. All right. And you go around the streets around the first of the month, it's like an open drug market everywhere you turn. It's a town of 24,000 people, and the mayor of the town or city, it's a city, makes, I believe, just over $80,000 a year. as a mayor of a town of 24,000 people, which to me is just ridiculous, because my mayor in a town of 19,000 or 18,000 we have here, he makes 22, I think, or something like that. So, it's like, wait a minute. But at the same time, they have no street lights. Their streets look like the craters of the moon. There's, as far as I know, there's 432 abandoned properties in this city. So what I did was I started reaching out and seeing what can I do, who needs the most help, like where do I start? And a woman was complaining about a pothole in front of her house. And so I commented back and said, well, what's your address? And, can you send me a picture of it? So she sent me a picture of it, and it was pretty deep. It was a pretty bad pothole. And I said, give me your address and I'll come by tomorrow. I'll be in the neighborhood and I'll come fill it for you. And she was like, who are you? And I just said, well, I'm Jason Decker from Midlothian, and I live, 2.6 miles away from you, and I'll just come by and fill it. And that opened the floodgates. And that was just the floodgates to where now I'm part of two community groups in Harvey that I kind of organized. One cleans up streets. We cut down weeds and trees. When you see weeds that grow into trees that they're like a tree that cover these vacant houses and vacant lots. So we go around and we cut those down and pull them to the street and clean that up. And then we also I volunteered my services and time to board up these houses if people would provide the plywood, because plywood's not cheap. It goes for $15 to $20 a sheet, and I'm not rich, but I will definitely volunteer my time and my tools, and we can get these houses boarded up, because they're finding dead bodies inside of them. Kids are going in there getting hurt. Gangs are stashing their guns and drugs in there, and the city just won't do anything. So what I finally did was I applied some pressure to the mayor of Harvey, and I had a 90-minute meeting with him, basically telling him who I was and what I wanted to do. And because in that conversation, I explained that I did plan on running for state rep. There's rumors that him and the state rep, there's misappropriation of funds coming from the state to Harvey, and they come in and they go out, and nothing gets fixed. So he definitely didn't like me. He basically just humored me for 90 minutes and basically said, no, I can't help you. I said, okay, thanks for your time. But what I did was I met enough people to where we have collected over $5,000 from private donations. 1,100 of that came right here from Midlothian, not even in Harvey. But for a city where most people say they don't even care about their own city, collecting $5,000 says a lot. And that's in the last 6.5, 7 weeks. And with that money, we have successfully secured and boarded up 69 houses. Just on Saturday mornings. We go Saturday morning, we get a list of addresses, people donate money and will give us a specific address, or they'll just donate to the pot. And then me and a good friend of mine, Chris Moore, he lives in Harvey. He basically collects most of the donations. I went out to different Home Depots asking for donations as far as like giving us a discount without being a non-for-profit. They basically told me to go pound sand, except one. Pretty decent amount away from Harvey, said, yeah, we'll give it to you at cost. So we're getting $19 a sheet plywood at $14.75 a piece. 2 weeks ago, when we got the $1,100 donation, we ordered 78 sheets of plywood, and we boarded up 25 houses in one day. So, and if you, like I said, you do your research on Harvey, Illinois, the stories just never stop. A mayor, 2 or 3 mayors ago, I almost said Gary Johnson, but their Mayor Johnson was
Jason,
actually.
We have other.
Go ahead.
Hey, Jason, we have other people that need to, since this is only an hour thing. So
okay,
sorry to cut you off, but
you asked me for
who wants to go next? I know, but I did, but we who wants to go next?
I'll go. So my name's Jake Leonard.
Okay, go ahead, Jake.
Yep. So yes, I'm sorry, I got to do it again. I'm Jake Leonard. I'm from Illinois. I'll go through my resume later, but My first experience with liberty was while I was in public schools. It was right around my sophomore year of high school, and I happened to get a hold in my not my public library, my high school library, two books that just looked it looked weird in a certain part of the library. Turned to find out that they were Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I read to those. I probably renewed them a few times um, until the head librarian's like, you're gonna have to turn these books back. And then when I turned it back in, she looked at there, says, those books aren't even supposed to be on the shelf. Those are books in our banned list. So they turned me into the principal's office. I get a suspension of a week from school for reading those books. So let's just say at the beginning, that was also my first time fighting the man. So I had to fight to appeal this whole thing with the suspension. It's like, it's a book. Their books shouldn't be banned. I did nothing wrong by reading this book. The school board members that were in that hearing is like, yeah, this makes no sense. Who put these books on the list? It's like, and they somewhere in that hearing, that after they said, you know what, this makes no sense that you're being suspended. You can go back to school. We're going to find out where this list is, and we're going to get rid of it altogether. So essentially, any books, they had 35 books on that list that no one was allowed to read out of the library, and it was just banished all over one hearing involving me. So after that, this is why I'm raised by Democratic parents that always taught me to think for yourself. So it was right around, and see, this is where I differ from everyone else that has told their story so far. I actually came from the Tea Party movement. So in 2008, I was supporting Ron Paul in the primary cycle for the presidential race. And I just saw how people were just crapping on the guy so much. Your mainstream Republicans is like, no, this guy's just a fringe candidate and junk like that. And then I got a lot of grief over voting for him in that primary cycle. And then I find out after doing a little bit of research after that primary that that he was the 1988 Libertarian presidential candidate. It's like, well, that's got me a little bit curious about the party. But I wasn't content with our choices. I was not happy with Obama, and I was not happy with John McCain. So I was actually warned, because I knew I didn't do any research and didn't know anything about the Libertarian Party at the time. I just wanted to write in Ron Paul in that at that election. And then when I attempted to do this, and at this time I'm living in the state of Missouri. When I go to my polling station, which is at a public school, by the way, I was attempting to do that, and then there's just these two bulky Republicans. It's like, well, what do you tend to do? And they happened to see that I had a Ron Paul pin, and I know you're not really supposed to do electioneering, but I had a pin on that said Ron Paul. And, well, let's just say that these guys took me outside the school and roughed me up, so I got beat up. And then let's just say that led into a little case in court that ultimately went to the state appellate court at that time, and it ultimately ended in my favor. They had to pay damages and all kind of stuff. Then I moved back. It was sometime around 2010. I wasn't happy with the choices for all the statewide offices. And I was like, you know what? This whole libertarian bug, and I'm still coming off the Tea Party movement. It's like, I need to look a little bit into the Libertarian Party more. I really didn't get far, but in that 2010 election, I just not even know what the party represented. I just voted straight ticket Libertarian where I could, and then just avoided the rest of the races. Now, in a few years later, 2013, it's like I need to get involved somehow and learn a little bit more. So I don't know the exact month in 2013, but I joined the Libertarian Party of Illinois, and then just really did nothing. I had never heard any communications back from anybody that was overseeing, membership, not even anything from the state chair. So it was right after 2015 when I ran a write-in campaign for city council where I live. It's like afterwards, 2016, it's like I need to see if I can do something about this and see if I can get involved more. So originally I was running for state rep at that time. Well, actually, no, I was helping somebody's campaign running for state rep, and the guy just decided to fly off the rails and go to the Republican Party. So this was before the state convention. I went to the state convention. It's like, well, hearing everything that's coming from everybody, it got me more intrigued. So it was sometime in that year that I got involved in the political division, whose director at the time was Scott Schluter, and I got a little bit of a start as deputy director of recruitment for candidates. I served in that position until March of 2019, and when I got bumped up to full director of candidate recruitment, and then November of 19, I got bumped up to a political director. So with all the races I've run, I've lost track right now. 2016, I ran for state rep in the 95th district. I've ran 3 nonpartisan races, 2 for city council, 1 for school board. Let's see, I did a write-in campaign for county clerk in 18. And then I'm currently in the middle of a campaign for a county board here in Montgomery County, Illinois. Depending on how things go, I will either be serving the next 2 years from that position, or I'll be preparing for the full term in 22. It just depends on how things go, because I'm thinking of a race for 21, but I'm not exactly solid on that yet. But it's like I'm just going to keep going. I mean, this year, the push due to COVID, we had to sue for our ballot access, and because there was no way we were going to get 25,000 for statewide or whatever ridiculous thresholds for any other lesser offices. And so we had to sue in federal court. Federal court found in our favor. They had, all parties had to negotiate what would work. So anybody that had a track record of major party status, their U.S. Senate and presidential candidates were automatically on the ballot. Anyone else had to file their petitions with a 90% threshold reduction. So, that was big. So this year, in the almost near half-century history of our affiliate, we ended up drafting a total of 35 candidates, and that's including Jorgensen and our U.S. Senate candidate, Danny Mala. So I'm proud. I hope I've done my predecessors proud. I hope I'm doing the work all I can for the party, and then we just continue to soldier forward into our future cycles.
All right. Well, thank you. Informative. Who wants to be next?
I'll go. Hey, Is my connection
Yeah.
working all right? So I'm DK Williams. If I'm up, if I get everybody's permission on that to go. All right, cool. Yeah, so I'm in
Go right ahead.
Denver now. Been in Denver since 2002. Yeah, I know. It's your hometown. We need you back. All right. And prior to that, I was in North Carolina for about 17 years. So this is now the longest place I've lived anywhere growing up, or my whole life. I am a lawyer. Don't hold that against me. I do a legal podcast. So if you guys want to check that out, that'd be awesome. I've got 83 podcasts about Supreme Court cases and other legal issues that are important, contemporary time. So I have a lot of fun doing that. You can find those on the podcast Twitter feed, which is at the law DKW. So yeah, check it out. It's awesome. And, as far as becoming a European, I didn't really have a eureka moment. I think I always kind of had that predisposition from somewhere. I'm sure my family was a major part of that, but they're not libertarians. I mean, they're very sympathetic to the issues, but they're not libertarians. So the ground was fertile, I think, even from a young age for that libertarianness to label itself, to identify itself. And I was thinking back about it, some of the things that might have contributed to it, or maybe just things I noticed that made sense. Because even as a kid, I remember watching The Outlaw Josie Wales, and that's a very libertarian movie, right? Almost the whole thing is. But the scene at the end when Josie and Tin Bears are talking, and Tin Bear says it's sad that governments are chiefed by the forked tongues, right? And these are just two individuals that are working out their problems. The government was created a lot of them, and they're here to work it out. And that was, to me, that was a major moment that stuck with me, even though I didn't know that was like libertarian at the time. But I believe that is very much so. And then, and even another Clint Eastwood movie from as a kid, The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, is an incredibly anti-war movie. There's like an entire segment where they're caught up with the Union Army and they're trying to blow up a bridge they're fighting over this bridge. And the one Union Army guy, the commander, who's like drunk because he can't handle it, the stupidity of it, right? He's always drinking. And so they're just fighting, killing each other over this bridge that neither one of them can take. And if you remember, Tuco and Blondie blow up the bridge, so they can't fight over it anymore. And I mean, you don't really think of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as being an anti-war movie, but a big chunk of it really is. And those are types of things that I think can get into your psyche, even if you don't know that's anti-war. You're going, well, the people in charge know this is stupid, but it's their job or whatever. That's what they're doing. You see all the death, and these two outlaws basically in the war, or that battle, they in that battle. So those things, I think those things are important. I think pop culture is important to kind of lay that groundwork in a lot of different ways. Let's see, my freshman year at University of North Carolina, I remember sitting at a window booth with some people I had just met. We're all freshmen, and it was at Henderson Street Bar in Chapel Hill. They were discussing the Fountainhead, which I had never heard of. And it sounded really interesting, the whole Dominique Francone and Howard Rourke relationship and what they were trying to do. But was another major step forward. So I had to go check that out, right? I had to go see what was going on there. And, I'm not a Randian, but there's still a lot there that makes sense. A lot there that I think is correct. So that was another step forward. I was involved with the Libertarian Party in North Carolina before I moved out here. I even remember going to some meetings in college, roughly. I guess they weren't expressly libertarian, but they were kind of libertarian. So I started meeting more people. I got involved with the county level party after I was, out of school. And then when I moved out here in 2002, got involved with the Colorado party, was eventually the state chair about 10 years ago. So I did that for a term. I was a legislative director before that. So I was down at the Capitol a lot, worked with Republicans and Democrats, depending on what the issues were. So that was a good experience. And actually, I was just in 3 debates that were televised or recorded. They're not, I guess they're on YouTube right now, where the Denver Decides, like the public access channel run by the government, right? The irony, had debates on a whole bunch of different ballot issues that will be on the ballot that we get mailed, I think tomorrow, actually. 2 of them were just about Denver and sales taxes. They each proposed to raise sales taxes in Denver 1/4 of 1%, which is 1 penny for $4. and one of them is to help the homeless, and the other one is to combat climate change. So I got asked to be against those sales taxes, and I think they went pretty well. I'll tweet the YouTube link to them because I think it's important for people to see them and tell, if I screwed some stuff up, let me know. I'm not afraid of criticism, but those are good. And they're, people in Denver are going to watch them. And my introduction was that I was a former state Libertarian chair and statewide office runner. Cause I ran for Attorney General 6 years ago. And I got to do 2 debates then against the Republican and the Democrat. And that was great. I love that. I had a whole lot of people come up and talk to me about, they had never thought of things that way before. So that was really cool. Even some like judges and people, right? Got 6.2% of the vote. No money whatsoever. I mean, a couple $100, but nothing to speak of. So that was cool. 120,000 votes. So trying to stay involved, things like that, do these debates when I'm asked, jump at the opportunity, and, got the podcast going. So check that out. And that's where I am. So thank you, Chris, for having this, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. I do need to come back out to Colorado at least to visit. I miss you guys. We met in 2010 at the St. Louis convention, and I need to come back. I need to come back out there and see, just to visit because I got a lot of friends and not friends. I got a lot of friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still left out there in Colorado. So yeah, I need to, life takes a turn. I'm a grandpa now, so and I got another one in December. So
all right.
Yeah, it's been a pretty hectic time recently, but yeah, we need to make another trip out to Colorado.
Heck yeah, Everybody come.
All right, Adam, last but not least.
All right, pulling up the rear. All right, first of all, since it is the LiBEERtarian, I just wanted to toast your inaugural episode.
Thank you.
And I didn't plan this, but this is actually the truth. And I think that's fitting for the podcast that you're starting. That's Flying Dog, Frederick, Maryland. The Truth IPA, double IPA. Glad I didn't drink too much of it before I started speaking. I'm originally from New York City, and currently from New York City, but I have spent 25 of my 45 years in other places, but they've all been super blue. New York, Boston, Chicago, the DC suburbs, London and the United Kingdom, and then back to Maryland and then back to New York City. So it's funny when I talk to liberals, they're like, how are you not liberal? When I talk to libertarians, they're like, how are you not liberal? I think I was, I realized my earliest influences was probably some of the rap music that back in the early 90s when there was some of the Afrocentric guys. I turned 18 2 weeks after the 1992 election, so that just give you a time frame. But I remember, I think it was KRS-One, of BDP. He said something like, "Why is it you can kill for your country, but you can't kill for personal reasons?" Which is obviously kind of a provocative statement, but that's we see a lot of these memes today that taxation is theft and all the things the government does that would be not allowed by as an individual. So I think that's like, I feel like over the years I had lots of things just kind of go through my brain without really thinking about it, because I wasn't really politically active. I mean, I was disappointed I couldn't vote in the 1992 election because my birthday was a couple weeks late. I don't even think I voted in 96. I did vote in 2000. And I was just kind of like this lukewarm liberal. Like I figured I was liberal, but I wasn't politically active. And I remember being really affected by 9/11 because I'm a native New Yorker. And that was the 1 year, it was 2 weeks after I got married, actually. And we were in Chicago for 1 year for my wife's getting a master's degree, and just watching my home get bombed really shook me, and it made me rethink kind of my whole worldview. Like, I thought it was great that the U.S. was going abroad and, in my mind, doing great things for all these countries, and not, I didn't pay close enough attention to what we were actually doing overseas. And I got somewhat more, but a couple of years later, we were in Maryland, and I was in grad school. I remember seeing Howard Dean on campus and being really excited for Howard Dean, leading up to the 2004 election. And because there was a lot of anti-war sentiment in the Democratic Party, which I was obviously completely behind, but was a mirage, obviously. The funny thing was, I think a large part of what brought me to libertarianism was my academic studies. I was in grad school for mathematics, and my concentration was math finance. And this, keep in mind, this was the late 90s was the dot-com bubble, and then the early 2000s was the housing bubble. And we're doing these, I remember we had this one professor who basically taught us the models that we teach to all our MBAs, and he was basically showing us why they don't work. I mean, literally, we could have taken like what he said and then bet against the housing market and made a ton of money. But he's telling me this, and I'm trying to come up with a dissertation, and I'm like looking at possible other models of the economy, like other than we're basically run by the Keynesian model. And I was like, people have had to have thought of something else, and that's how I came across Austrian economics. And I tried to read Human Action, like that was too much for me at that time. But really just slowly getting into the economic side of things and understanding that there's a different way to look at human action, a different way to look at the economy and the way people interact with one another. And one of your previous people was talking about reading Atlas Shrugged, and then the first real, I keep this in a this is by Sheldon Richman, Tethered Citizens, and it's about the time to repeal the welfare state. So this, as someone who was liberal at the time, that introduced to me the idea that you can have good intentions and bad outcomes. And that's when I started to kind of turn away from liberalism, because I realized it doesn't work. Like, I know that all my liberal friends are 100% sincere in their desire to make the world a better place, but most of the solutions that they put forth do not work. And I've been banging my head against the wall for almost 2 decades now, trying to convince them of that same fact. So it was kind of a gradual process. I ended up on a mailing list. I think it's Agora Publishing out of Maryland. Bill, what's that guy's name? I'm not on the mailing list anymore, but they would send out things that Ron Paul had written. So I kind of moved into the Ron Paul for President movement. I worked on a Ron Paul Republican campaign. Actually, if you've seen Kim Klacik running in Maryland 7, I was a campaign manager for a Republican running against Elijah Cummings in 2008. And so yeah, 2008, 2012, I was pretty involved in the libertarian Republican side of things. I was definitely in some tea parties in Maryland for we didn't have a lot of tea parties in Maryland, but we had a few. And at this point, I've decided to kind of put my libertarianism in practice. So we got back from London, and that's when I went into business for myself. And so, my goal over the past few years has been to show that libertarian principles work in practice by running my own business and having seen what's the decimation that this country and especially my city here has gone through with COVID. Like, once I get to a place where I'm comfortable, I want to kind of give back to the people of Manhattan and teach them how to run their own business and take control of their lives. I don't want people dependent on the government. I don't, I look at myself, like I said, listening to the rap music, and there were a lot of messages that were similar to like Black Lives Matter today. It was anti-establishment, but there was also definitely sort of socialist messages. And I don't think we need to dismiss everyone in BLM today, because I think there are people like me who understand the anti-establishment part, and you can kind of convince them that socialism is wrong. So I pretty much support, Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen, what they've done in terms of, coming out and saying Black Lives Matter. I think that's, that works for me. And but yeah, I mean, I've started to get more involved in the Manhattan Libertarian Party just recently. In the past few months, I saw both Spike and Joe in the past 2 weeks, so that was very exciting. And hopefully, just going forward, it'll get bigger and better. So I just want to thank you for having me on, Chris. It's an honor to be on this inaugural episode, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Yes, I have. Like I was telling before we went on there, there's two major things that I want to get out of this podcast going forward. One, I want to start, bringing out these problems that we have as libertarians. Okay, whether if it's getting the ideas out, or or why do we not have more women in the party, or more minorities in the party, or more politically homeless people into the party. I want to bring out all these problems that we face. Okay, it's not just ballot access or the media or whatnot. Some of that stuff we can circumvent. Okay, we really don't have a lot of excuses anymore. Okay, we could circumvent the mainstream media. Okay, by having podcasts like these. Okay, and another thing is that once we lay out all these problems, okay, that we have, I want to come back and say, hey, what do we do to fix these problems? Okay, I want to have people come back and say, hey, this is what we could do. It's a problem solving kind of podcast. I'll have some fun podcasts, like some pop culture, some music, or I'm a music buff. I'm an old school guy. I'm a metalhead too. So I want to do a music one, okay, and some pop culture, movies, current events. I'm gonna have a libertarian candidate, one where I can get candidates pop in and out of the podcast, like I kind of had to do today. So we can, get the video out and have people support libertarian candidate. And every 3 months I want to get a totally different asked on how did you get into libertarianism. Okay, so I'm here to problem solve. I realize, since now I'm a grandpa, that I need to leave. If I do leave when I do leave the world, I need to leave it in a better place than it was handed to me for my grandson. So being a grandpa has changed me a lot. And I just came up with this idea over the last 6 months, and I'm hoping to run with it. Plus, I want people to say next time someone says, "How come we can't get more women in the party?" They could show this video and say, "Hey, this is the reason why we can't, or this is why we can." So it's a problem solving thing, and I'm hoping that it comes into fruition, and that's my main goal. I want to be free. I want people to, I want less government. I just want to be free. I just don't like the restraints, and that's just how I feel. So, I mean, any last thoughts before I end the podcast?
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. I appreciate
This
it.
was
Thank
good.
you, Adam. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jason. Keep up the good work. Hopefully I can come up your way sometime in the near future, spend a Saturday up there or Sunday up there with you, and meet all the things that
You're more than welcome.
you and Josh Flynn are doing up there. So,
Josh
thank
is
you.
killing it, man.
And I will definitely contact you guys
Thank you.
on a future
And nice to meet you guys.
podcast.
Sounds great, Chris. Thanks
All
a lot.
right. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
You too, Jason. Okay.